You read the title right. The Epstein files were just released, or at least some of them. Look, the Epstein files have been in the news for so long, there's no point in me doing a summary about what's already happened, so I'm only going to focus on the brand new news and my thoughts on that. So the House Oversight Committee just released 30,000 pages from the Epstein files. This is a big deal, right? Well, not really. It turns out that less than 3% of the newly released files is actually new information. You know that meme, like the nothing ever happens guy? Yeah, it feels like he just keeps getting proved right again and again, because it feels like every time we're close to this big breakthrough, the rug just gets pulled out. So what actually got released? Well, it's a lot of court records that were already public about the case, and some other information, some video evidence that was already public. As for what's actually new, it seems like there were some new flight logs related to Jeffrey Epstein, but all of this passengers were censored. Is it me, or is that kind of just missing the point? Wasn't the entire point of all this transparency of putting it out in the open was for finding out who the passengers are so we can actually make some arrests? There are some sick, twisted people tied up in all of this, and none of the newly released information is going to lead to any new arrests. There is so much that's being held back under the pretense of protecting the victim's identity. Well, here's the thing. The victims are already coming out into the open, and they want the whole thing released. They want everything released, if that's what it takes to bring the perpetrators to justice. So we can't pretend that things are being held back to protect the victims. So then we're just left with the question, who is this protecting? And that's really what I want to talk about today, because I think that the relationship between the government and the people is severely out of whack. Our nation was built on the principle that the government answers to the people, not the other way around. Obviously, government leaders need to have power to do their jobs, but at the end of the day, the person holding the keys needs to be the American citizen. So if you're thinking this is just like any other scandal, and why are people still talking about this? To me, it's because this relationship has gone horribly out of whack. Information is being concealed to protect the government at the expense of the people and future victims. You should think about it like this. The founding fathers didn't intend for our government to be your boss. They intended it to be your employee that works for your benefit. Now, if you're on the left or the right, we have disagreements on what it means to work for your benefits. But at the end of the day, we should all be able to agree that the government working for its own benefit is not acceptable. So if this makes you angry, what can you do about it? What power do you still have left? Well, to be honest, not a lot. The main power that you, as a citizen, have over the federal and state government is your vote. But if you keep voting for the exact same candidates every year, you don't really have that power at all. If you've never, ever considered voting for the opposite party, no matter which side you're on, if you've never considered voting for the opposite party under any circumstances, then you are part of the problem, and you are the reason that the government has maintained the status quo for so long. You need to be open to the idea that under some circumstances, you might vote for the opposite party or a third party. And once you've gotten to that point, once you've decided that this is the situation, if this happened, then I would be willing to take my vote away and switch my vote, then you actually have some power back. Because then you can communicate that to your leaders. You can say, I'm looking for this. And if the party that I voted for so long is not willing to give me this, I'm going to switch my vote over. That's essentially all the power that you have left. So is thinking about which party you'd vote for in the future, is that going to release all the Epstein files? Of course not. But I think if people start thinking about their government less as leaders and more like public servants that are meant to answer to the people, then I think that's how we can bring real change in this country. Again, I'm not asking you to give up the beliefs that are important for you. I'm just asking you to think about under which circumstances would I even consider voting differently than what I would have otherwise. And that's ultimately the main message that I want to communicate with this channel going forward. If that mission seems valuable to you, I'd encourage you to stick around. Thank you.